Hello students, welcome to the biology class. We will continue with the chapter Plant Kingdom, and today we will try to discuss about the bryophytes and pteridophytes. So let us start with bryophytes. In class 9 you have read about the bryophytes, and by now you know they are mostly terrestrial plants depending on water for external fertilization and completion of their life cycle, and that is why they are called the amphibians of the plant kingdom. They include near about 960 genera and 24,000 species. Now, bryophytes always grow in shady and moist places like the moist walls, damp rocks, old logs, etc. They either show thalloid, means undifferentiated mass of cells like body, or leafy plant body. They do not have true roots. The true roots are absent, but rhizoids are present, which are root-like structure. Rhizoids absorb water and minerals and helps the fixation of thallus to the substratum. Now, we all know that vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem, are absent. However, a conducting strand of few thick-walled cells is present in mosses, which are higher bryophytes. Bryophytes show heteromorphic alternation of generation. Heteromorphic means two different types of the plant body during alternation of generation. One of them is known as gametophytic phase, which is green, dominant, independent and haploid. The other is sporophyte phase, which is non-green, recessive, dependent and diploid. They also reproduce by vegetative reproduction by a specialized structure called tubers or gemma. You must be knowing gemma are the asexual cup-like structures which can reproduce when they are detached from the plant body. Asexual reproduction is by spore formation and sexual reproduction is by formation and fusion of gametes. Bryophytes are divided into two groups, liverworts and mosses. So let us see the liverworts first. They are the lower members of bryophytes having prostrate plant body or thallus-like plant body. They are found in moist and shady places. They are dorsiventrally flat and have unicellular rhizoids. So this is their characteristic feature, unicellular rhizoids and dorsiventral flat body. Some of them have stem-like axils and leaf-like appendages. As I said, the vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation or formation of gemma. Each gemma develops into a young plant on separation from the plant body. And sexual reproduction is by formation of male and female sex organs on same or different plants. After fertilization, a sporophyte or a diploid is formed which contains haploid spores produced by meiosis. These haploid spores upon germination produce haploid young plants. And the examples are Riccia and Merchantia. So, Riccia looks like this. They are very small plants along the surface of the ground. And Merchantia, you can see them very commonly during the rainy season along the sides of the drains. Now mosses. Mosses are the higher members of bryophytes, which have erect plant body. They also have the gametophytic and the sporophytic phase. But the gametophytic phase is divided into two stages, namely the proteinema or the juvenile gametophyte and the leafy stage. The proteinema stage is prostrate, green, branch and filamentous stage. It bears many buds and leafy stage is produced from the buds. Hence, proteinema helps in vegetative propagation. The leafy stage of the gametophyte is an erect, slender main axis and a branch-bearing spiral leaf-like structure. They are fixed to the soil by multicellular rhizoids. Again, these multicellular rhizoids are the characteristic feature of the mosses. Now students, during the sexual reproduction, the male and the female gametes are produced in the archegonium and the antheridium. So what does antheridium produces? They produce the antheridia, the male gamete, and the female gamete, the archegonia, is produced in archegonium. And these antheridium and archegonium are present in clusters at the tip of the main axis. They are hidden here in the tip of the main axis. The zygote gives rise to a well-developed sporophyte. So this sporophyte is a dependent sporophyte on the gametophyte. Gametophyte is independent, but the sporophyte is dependent on the gametophyte. And the sporophyte can be divided into three parts: the foot, the seta and the capsule. So it is the capsule which gives rise to the spores. The haploid spores are produced by meiosis in these capsules, and upon the dehiscence of capsules, those spores are released, which deposit at conducive surface and give rise to a new gametophyte. So the example of Funaria and Tritium, examples of your mosses are Funaria and Polytrichum. The next is Pteridophyta. So the Pteridophyta are the first truly terrestrial vascular plants with true root, stem and leaves. This group has around 400 genera and 500 species. The leaves of the pteridophytes are pinnately compound leaf. So they have pinnately compound leaf. The pteridophytes are also called the vascular cryptogams. Cryptogams because they have hidden sex organs and they have vascular tissue. But they do not produce flowers, fruits or seeds. Now, as I said, they have vascular tissue, but the vascular tissue, xylem, consists only of tracheids and phloem only has seed cells. Unlike the higher gymnosperms and angiosperms, their vascular tissues are very simple. The secondary growth is not seen in the pteridophytes because of the absence of the cambium. The sporophyte shows sexual reproduction by producing spores. The gametophyte develops from the spore, which is a haploid structure and is independent, and it reproduces sexually to form a diploid sporophyte. Now, pteridophytes are the one which have two types of spores, the heterospores and the homospores. Homospores are identical spores. There's no distinction between a male and a female spore or different types of spores. But the heterospores, we find two types of spores, the microspores and the megaspores. Now, spores are produced in multicellular structures called sporangia. And where is this sporangia present? At the back side of the leaves in the form of sori. So, you will see the globule-like structure at the back of the leaves, which are called sori, and here the meiocytes are produced, which upon meiosis produces the spores. Now, the life cycle of a sporophyte. The life cycle of a sporophyte or a pteridophyte which have a dominant sporophyte starts with a spore, which is a haploid structure. This spores gives rise to a young gametophyte. The gametophyte takes the structure of a prothallus, which is an undifferentiated mass of cell. Now, this gametophyte has antheridium and archegonium. The antheridium produces sperm and archegonium produces egg. Now, they have multicellular rhizoids to get attached to the substratum. Now, fertilization of egg and sperm gives rise to the diploid zygote. The diploid zygote develops into a new sporophyte which is dependent on the gametophyte. So, here also the gametophyte is independent but the sporophyte is dependent. Now, these sporophyte then grow into a mature sporophyte. And then in the mature sporophyte, the sporogonium and the sories, they appear, which have sporangium, and within the sporangium meiosis takes place to give rise to the spores, which upon dispersal again produce the young gametophyte. The next is division gymnospermae. Gymnospermae are the division which produces naked seeds. They are the simplest member of the phanerogams without ovary. The term gymnosperm was first used by Theophrastus in 300 BC in his book Enquiry into Plants. There are 70 genus and 725 species known of gymnospermae, though in India we find only 16 genus and the 53 species, and most of them are evergreen perennial trees and shrubs found on a higher altitudes. They are vascular plants having xylem with tracheids and phloem with sieve cells. Now, as I said, they are non-flowering plants that produce naked seeds. Because the fruits are absent, so the seeds are not enclosed in fruits, hence the name gymnosperma. They show heteromorphic alternation of generation. The sporophyte is diploid, dominant phase, autotrophic in nutrition and is independent. But the gametophyte here is dependent and haploid. The gametophyte is very much reduced and exists inside the sporophyte. Now the sporophyte is differentiated into true roots, stem, leaves. And you must be knowing that gymnosperms, they have well developed taproot system. Now two types of association are present in gymnosperm. One is known as coralloid roots, which are present in cycas, which show association with blue-green algae. See, here in the picture, these are the coralloid roots of the cycas. They form nodule-like structure which harbors millions of cyanobacteria. And the pinus, they show association with endophytic fungi, which this association is a symbiotic one and is known as mycorrhiza. Now, the plant body of the gymnosperm, if you consider the stems, they are mostly erect, aerial, solid and cylindrical. But in cycas, they are usually unbranched, whereas in conifers that grow at high altitude, it is branched. The leaves are dimorphic, means two types of leaves are found. One is known as the foliage leaf, which is green, simple, needle-like or pinnately compound, and the second type is known as the scale leaves, which are small, membranous and brown in color. See, the distinct structure of the leaves are quite visible here in this picture. These small ones are the scaly leaves and the larger green one are the foliage leaves. The secondary growth occurs in the gymnosperms because of the presence of cambium. Now, gymnosperms are heterosporous. They produce microspore and megaspores. And these spores are produced in sporangium, the leaf-like sporophyll, which are called cones or strobilus. See in the picture, this is a female cone, female strobilus, and this is a male strobilus. Female strobilus are usually larger in size than the male strobilus. Now, this is the life cycle of the gymnosperm. So, their life cycle starts with a mature sporophyte. This mature sporophyte is represented by the tree that you see. This tree produces female and male strobilus, where the meiosis occurs to produce the gametophyte. So, the gametophyte, they undergo mitosis and they produce the archegonium and pollen grains. The archegonium harbors one or two egg cells. Now, the pollen and the egg cell fuse to form the zygote. Now, zygote grows into embryo, the embryo into a embryonic sporophyte or a young sporophyte, and then into the mature sporophyte. So, till the female strobilus from the zygote represents the diploid stage of the sporophyte. And after meiosis, the pollens and the archegonium and the egg cell represents the haploid phase of the gametophyte. So that is all about this particular chapter, as because angiosperms are not there in your syllabus for this particular year. Thank you. Syllabus for